Here we are. We're at tool number 4 already. So, with tool number 4, it's similar to your thought inventory, but it's actually called emotion inventory. Helps us become more emotionally aware. I don't know about you, but when I first started this journey, I had no idea that I wasn't actually emotionally aware, and that I tended to actually stuff my feelings down instead of acknowledge them and say, hey, I'm feeling frustrated, or hey, I'm feeling sad, or hey, I'm feeling really powerless right now, which is a pretty strong emotion that can lead to a lot of things. However, I think that I subscribe to the belief that my feelings were not acceptable or they weren't right if I wasn't feeling a certain thing at a certain time. And so I tended to stuff those down and simply ignored them, or I would try to do other things in order to not feel that negative feeling anymore. And I completely embraced all of the happy feelings, the joy and the happiness. And I'm so, mostly I'm so joyful, and that's who I am. And I would tend to ignore and stuff down the negative emotions, which is not part of the human experience because we are humans and we experience all spectrums of emotions. And I want you to realize that emotions are morally neutral. They're not good, they're not bad. They're just an emotion based on what we think. We have that emotion because we have thought something specific. The thought of I love my husband can bring me a lot of joy and peace. And the thought of I hate it when he doesn't come home on time can bring those feelings of anger and resentment. That's completely two different things about the same person. So you see, it's not necessarily the person, it's not the circumstance, it's not the person, it's what we think about it. It's our perception of that. A lot of times we do feel uncomfortable feelings and our brains don't know what to do. We don't like it. We don't know how to handle them. We don't understand where they're coming from. Our thoughts, by the way. It's not a mystery. It's just not something we've been taught. So give yourself some grace there. And just understanding where they're coming from and then saying, okay, I want to just sit here and be okay with it and understand what I'm feeling. And that's the whole point of emotion inventory. You're simply writing down the circumstance or what happened and how you feel about it. And then from there, you can always go back and say, oh, these are my thoughts, and that's why I felt this way. But just for the sake of this exercise and this tool, we're just going to say, I want to learn how to recognize my emotions and what they are. And did you know that if you actually ran toward the emotion in a way, or you just sit with the emotion, the feeling of that emotion, if you fully embraced it, can actually be over in about 90 seconds. And I'm not sure if you've heard the story of the buffalo and the cow in Colorado. And I will tell you now because I've heard it from Girl Water Your Grass podcast, which I will link below. And she heard it from somewhere else too. But she said in Colorado, it's one of the only places on earth where actually cattle and buffalo roam in the same plains. And the funny thing is when a storm comes, the cows just run away from the storm. And so they're in the storm for a lot longer because they're essentially running with the storm, and they're hanging out in the storm for a lot longer. The buffalo do the opposite. When they see a storm coming, they actually run toward the storm, because when you go through that storm and actually experience it, and just, not saying you're busting through it by yourself, but when you go through it and experience it and allow it to happen, the buffalo are getting through that storm a lot quicker than the cows are. So this is my, I guess, motivational story to you of perhaps we can be like a buffalo and just say, I want to feel this. I want to feel all the emotions, negative and positive, because that makes me human. That makes me more aware of who I am. It makes me more aware of what thoughts I'm thinking. It makes me more aware of how my emotions are affecting my internal life and the external environment around me. Do you see how this is all connected? Do you see how one tool plays off of another, and how all of them are helpful for us to becoming more human, more aware of our humanness in the best way possible? Because that's where Christ comes in and makes up the rest of where we're lacking. Always. My grace is sufficient for thee, For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore will I, revel in my weakness. The power of Christ may rest in me. I believe that's 2 Corinthians 12:9.